Welcome. You're listening to Parts and Charts, the IFS and Astrology Podcast. I'm Chelsea Owens, an artist and licensed marriage and family therapist specializing in internal family systems, and one of my spiritual gifts is the ability to balance depth and fun.
And I'm KP Kaszabowski, a poet, filmmaker, and astrologer who seeks pathways to fully loving myself and others, and the language for what is happening underneath the surface.
Together, we explore how inner parts and planetary archetypes speak to one another. Whether you're new to IFS or astrology or deep in your own integration practice, we're glad you're here.
Hello.
Hello.
We're doing this. Okay. So, do you want to introduce yourself? Chelsea Owens.
Yes. I am Chelsea Owens. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and art therapist here in the beautiful state of California. And I am a level 2 trained IFS therapist. IFS is internal family systems. And how I got here, well, I could go way back, or I could give you just like the short brief version of the last couple years.
Let's go way back. Let's go the long way.
Okay. So we'll go back to 2008 when I was really figuring out what to do with my life. And I moved to San Francisco and I was working in law and really thought I was going to go to law school. I studied history and political science, so nowhere near therapy land. And I took the LSAT twice, like kind of freaked out, had a panic attack. Like my body was like, this is not right for you. So I totally pivoted, switched gears completely, was like Googling, creativity and helping people. Like literally, Google told me what to do. And it was like, go be an art therapist. Luckily, there's a school close by, in the South Bay that had a marriage and family therapy, art therapy program. So I joined that, not really knowing like what I was really getting into. But it just at the time felt right. And I felt like, yeah, this is where I want to go. I'll give it a try. Like I was in my, I don't know, mid 20s and was just open to trying anything. And here I am still practicing. And so I did that whole program, worked in a variety of settings, agencies, different community settings. And now I'm in private practice. And so through my little art therapy journey, marriage and family therapy journey, since being licensed, kind of gravitated towards different modalities. And how I found IFS, I think it was about probably 7-ish years ago, maybe 8 years ago. I was working with a therapist and she just started doing IFS with me, and I didn't even know what it was at the time. And I think it was our first session. Um, and for those of you who don't haven't experienced IFS, the sessions look a little bit different from normal talk therapy.
Yeah.
So you're not just kind of coming in and just like, downloading all this stuff to your therapist, just talking about your day. Um, like my eyes are often closed. And I think in that first session, she didn't prompt me to close my eyes and like go inside, but it just kind of naturally happened just through the line of questioning that was happening.
Mhm.
Um, and I just, found myself thinking like, what the hell is she doing? Like I had no idea what this was. And I was like, is this really therapy? Because it felt so spiritual and kind of esoteric. Um, and then I just fell in love with it. I was like, wow, this is like, I can't believe this is what therapy can be. It just really, really clicks with me. And then I started using it with my clients. I got trained, and yeah, and I'm still just such a huge fan. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So perfect of an introduction to you and your practice.
Oh, thanks.
Um, I feel very similar about IFS in similar modalities like hypnotherapy and more like subconscious modalities of like it feels like you're tapping into a part of yourself that is always there, like the spirit self,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
it's not usually expressed in a conscious like talking way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
it clicks with me very much as well. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I think what I was really doing with art before, at least in my own art practice, and sometimes with clients in art therapy, um, and this is just kind of another, I don't know, addition or added layer to kind of externalizing what's going on inside or externalizing our parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. So my introduction
Yeah.
as the we're calling it the resident astrologer, though Chelsea is very much adept in astrology as well. I'm also a poet, an artist, a filmmaker, theater maker. I tend to approach all parts of my life through art making, and storytelling. Being the author basically is like the role I like to play. So that can look like I'm writing my own book or I'm collaborating with a group of people writing a play together, that kind of thing, or a screenplay. Um, but astrology, it's been a very slow roll for me, which makes a lot of sense. Being a Capricorn rising, I came across astrology. I think I like vividly have a memory of getting a book from the library when I was 9. And I know I was 9 because I was like talking to my friend at school, and that friend was only there for like that year of my life. That's the only way I know like when I was introduced to astrology. Before that, I was really interested in mythology, Greek mythology and Norse mythology. So I think there's like the language of gods, goddesses, archetypes was always kind of like part of my understanding. Like having this like large pantheon and everyone has their own like significations kind of thing, like always really resonated with me. So going on from 9, it was around like 12 or 13 or 14, I started like really looking at, I don't know if I understood what a birth chart was yet, but like looking at the placement of the zodiac in the sky and getting to know those archetypes, the zodiac archetypes and the planets archetypes. But it wasn't until I was like 25 into my early 30s where I started like reading charts for myself and for people and like really making connections between all of the like the techniques and stuff like that. This is like my journey to now where I've been offering like different types of sessions to people for I think about 5 years, but really earnestly for 3 years. Some of these people include, or one of these people includes Chelsea, as well as our like tarot book club. So that's where I'm coming from. I tend to take an archetypal, like I kind of mentioned, approach, which is like understanding that there are every placement in our birth chart. We let's go back a little bit. Like we have all these parts of ourselves, which is like IFS language as well, that have in some moments a part wants to be talked to or honored or listened to, I guess. And then other parts of your life, there's maybe like your moon sign really needs more nurturing or whatever. And it's more apparent the more you get to know your own chart and its placements. So that's kind of how I approach it with clients and myself, understanding that the planets are always moving and always activating or lighting up certain parts of your life. They're never sitting still. And so, like, you may identify with having a Sagittarius sun, like that's the sign or the placement that you identify the most with. But there's all these other placements, these planets that every other person on this planet has influencing the moment that they were born, but they're slightly different for you, though there is commonality in all of us as well.
Mhm.
The other important thing to say for listeners is that I have committed to or devoted to Hellenistic astrology, which means that I read charts with the whole sign, like dividing method. My techniques are sometimes many thousands of years going back that we're still using today. I do take the psychological or like self-development approach that modern astrologers do, but it is more based in like us as a collective, reading signs and tracking patterns than more modern astrologers tend to talk about astrology. So that's my introduction into like what do I do and how do I do it? I thought it would be interesting for us to propose our hypothesis, Chelsea, and
Mhm.
why we're combining IFS and astrology in this long form project of ours, this podcast.
Yeah, I think
How
that's
would
beautiful.
you phrase that?
Yeah, well, yeah, first of all, I just want to say, I love how you put everything so succinctly about how you practice astrology, and I think that's really helpful for the maybe the folks who don't know much about astrology or like have an idea about astrology that's just kind of I don't know, limited, I guess, or just based on like horoscope or sun
Yeah.
sign and how much deeper it is and how all of these different things get so illuminated constantly, like it's all constantly changing and not just yeah, not just like static.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I guess I'm hoping that yeah, something maybe gets illuminated for people who don't gravitate towards that modality or those tools, just to get people thinking. Not that they have to believe in it or believe in any of this, right? But just to reflect. And I think that's what all the tools are. Um, no matter what type of therapy you practice or what type of therapy you're engaged in, um, or any of these different ways that we try to classify or identify ourselves or information about ourselves, it's all just a tool. You
yeah,
can take what you want, and there's so many different things out there like that you can engage with and use as reflection. And these are just the two that we really love,
yeah.
we believe in. And yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to try to convince anyone that this is the
Yes.
best form of therapy or the best way of looking at your chart. Um, it's just what really works for us, and we really love it so much. And yeah, yeah. So that's kind
That's
of, I guess, maybe the answer to that question.
It's interesting that you use the word convince because in my recent memory, a really important moment occurred. I was defending my thesis. So in this like hour and a half or maybe 2 hour moment of my life, I'm defending something I worked on really hard for 2 years, a collection of poems. And one of my thesis advisors, or I don't know what they called them, but not my advisor, but another person who was on the panel, he asked me, as a poet, how would you convince other people to engage with poetry?
Mhm.
And it's an interesting question. I didn't take that as like a challenge question, but it was my response was I paused and I said, I don't I don't
Mhm.
desire to convince anyone of anything.
Yeah.
And if there is the verb convincing involved, I just want to be the poet or show my poetry.
Totally.
And if that inspires someone else to engage in it or to engage in poetry as a whole, then that's great and that's fine. Then we have something in common now.
Mhm.
But I'm not interested just with astrology and IFS. I'm not interested in forcing people to like ascribe or prescribe to this method that I use to make greater meaning and connection in my life.
Yeah.
Um, I, yeah, like you said it so well with like, there's so many tools out there, and these are the ones that resonate with us. So I just wanted to share that, like, every single mode of life, poetry, dance, like, I don't know, we can give so many examples. Like,
Mhm.
can there may be this desire to convince, but we're not here to do that. We're just here to show you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. Yeah. And yeah, well, yeah, that's so beautiful. And yeah, we really believe in these modalities that work for us. And yeah, for me, really, really actually got to the healing.
yeah,
Um, like, yeah, if people don't want to subscribe to that, that's totally fine. Like, I'm not attached to the outcome of like
yeah, yeah,
people, yeah, not liking these things or not choosing to, yeah, listen to these modalities.
yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of I went to go buy some yarn at one of my local yarn shops, and I talked to this person who works there, and he's really into astrology, so we always chit chat, and he gives me like recommendations about my different like placements, like, oh, Leo
Oh,
rising, I'll give you this like yellow or blue. And
that's so
yeah, I asked him
sweet.
I know. I asked him the question once, like, how do you respond to people who, are challenging you about astrology? Or like, they say like, oh, that doesn't exist, or like that's not real, or that's not based in science or evidence. And his response was just, so? It's
Yeah.
like, what? Like, yeah, they say that. I don't care.
Yeah, that's a good response.
Yeah.
Recently, I had a response I am not super proud of, which is like, well, fantasy football's not real either, but like a lot of time and energy and connection is made through it. So like,
Mm,
I
yeah.
love that for you. And like, I shouldn't have said that because it is real. It's real.
It's
And
good.
it's not a question of reality, it's a question of connection.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Anyway. So, okay, so our hypothesis is that IFS as a tool, like you said, like really got you to the healing, and astrology as a tool to get you to the healing or to get you to meaning making. Our hypothesis is that there's so many similarities in not just how things are talked about, but like how the tools can be used. Um, right? How would you phrase it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
our intention with this podcast is to um, either choose a topic or a set of topics and approach them from our two different disciplines. Like, how would we talk about, or how would we lead someone through this discussion using IFS and astrology? And then maybe in each episode, we will find how it's similar and how it's different.
Yeah.
And both discoveries are great.
hmm
The ultimate intention, we're not sure of yet because we're on this like expedition. But I feel really good about our hypothesis, especially from the framework of the astrology framework of all of us have the same parts, but
hmm
they're just in different spots and they're interacting in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
hmm
yeah.
Yeah. hmm And I know there's going to be overlap.
Oh yeah. We yeah,
There will
we've
be
we've talked a
overlap.
lot about it already. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I can't wait to dig in. Yeah.
Um, from here, maybe do you want to talk a little bit about IFS as you see it, or like what's like the basic foundational information we should share?
Yeah. So internal family systems is a therapy modality. It's probably been around since the 80s-ish, founded by Dick Schwartz. He was a family therapist, worked in a lot of really intense settings, mostly with eating disorders when he was developing this model, and just like kind of spontaneously discovered that we all contain parts. And through working with his clients, who basically kind of showed him this model, right? And how, yeah, we contain all these different parts. They're like little beings, they're like little spiritual beings inside of us that contain memories, traumas, thoughts, feelings, all of it. And if you've ever seen the movie Inside Out or Inside Out 2, highly recommend. It
Mhm.
feels like a very IFS movie, and a lot of people talk about that. And that feels like a pretty good illustration of what it's like to have all these parts inside, and um, yeah, and how they all interact with each other, how they can sometimes take the wheel, be in charge, and they all have, um, I want to say like different intentions for us, but a lot of times they have similar intentions for us. Like they want us to be safe, they want us to be happy, they want us to be loved, they want us to be connected. And they
Mhm.
just go about it in different ways. So you could have protective parts that, kind of manage your day to day, manage different things in your life, how you speak, what you do, what you don't do. Um, and then there's this category called firefighters that are also protective, but they kind of show up to put out a fire. So really like a firefighter, they're putting out the fire of an intense emotion. Um, so they could show up as kind of coping with that feeling. Like let's say you what would be a good one? Like it kind of shows up as like substance abuse sometimes. That's
Yeah.
often an example that we use. So, maybe shame comes up or sadness, right? That the system really doesn't want you to feel. And a firefighter will come in and kind of school, like just like try to put that fire out with, drinking or whatever, whatever the thing is. It could even be, looked at as like a positive thing, like
Yeah.
uh, meditation sometimes. There could be a really positive firefighter who is really spiritual, but kind of. bypasses all of the, like, let's say, negative feelings that it doesn't want you to feel. And then there's exiles. So exiles are these really tender parts of us that get exiled in the system. They're often like hidden or harder to find. And they can be just really like young parts of us that kind of got sectioned off for, a variety of reasons. Maybe a trauma happened or, yeah, something happened a while ago that the system decided like, oh, we can't feel this, or like this isn't okay. We need to put this over here and like never open it up or never come back to it. So one of the goals in therapy is to go to those exiled parts, heal them, integrate them back into the system, and before that, getting like manager, protector, permission to go there and kind of get them all on board with the whole healing process. So that's kind of like really
Yeah.
abridged version of kind of IFS and what we do and some of the language that we use. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And what I noticed so Chelsea and I had a session. She was the practitioner, obviously. What I noticed is that it was maybe not gentle, but it was very much like without force. It's more about acknowledgement or like getting to know what's happening and in receiving information, which I really appreciated how you were how you as a practitioner balance like being a guide, like a forward motion guide with like really great listening skills, and like clarifying questions too. This modality compared to other ones I've experienced felt like a really good blend of like you can set an intention when you're going in there, but it's really teaching you how to like be a good listener, be a good friend. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
want to talk maybe about your experience with our session from your point of view? I trust that you will not share personal details, but like how it felt from your point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, to be really honest, like, because I've done this so much,
Yeah.
I don't want to say it wasn't unique because I don't want to minimize like your
Oh,
experience, or your parts, but yeah, it felt to me like, um, yeah, like a common kind of, I don't know, maybe process of parts, self to
yeah.
parts coming up, kind of, I don't want to say parts getting in the way, but like parts coming up, asking them to move back, kind of doing this dance of just bringing in more self energy,
Yeah.
bringing in like your self to part, relationships, maybe sometimes, maybe for the first time, for some of those parts. And yeah, so it felt to me like what kind of typically happens in a lot of sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So I hope that's helpful for a listener to hear and like I know it's helpful for me at least. Yeah, it's like a dance. It's like a very special dance to be able to trust someone to like that could guide me through it so I could go deeper. And at the end of our session, maybe this isn't when we talked about it, but we did talk about it recently where like it's so difficult to do that kind of work alone because it
yeah,
can be really hard to tell what part is speaking or if it's yourself or it's not yourself. And it's so helpful to have someone else's outside perspective.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Because you're so in what you're in. Like you
Yeah.
as a kind of client, you're so in a visual space or
Yeah.
just this energetic like experience that you can't necessarily be in that and also like have this kind of overseer that's like, okay, now do this, now do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, total therapist brain or guide brain,
Yeah.
like, looking at it all. Like, I just don't think you can really do that.
It's a
So you really
really, oh, go
extra,
on. Go
yeah,
ahead.
you really need the extra like help there for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
It feels like meditation where it's just like you're getting so deep into this like no time
Yeah.
space. And I got very visual information where I guess other people don't always get visual information, right?
Yeah, 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 not all the time. People can have
Yeah.
just like a very like visceral experience or very somatic experience or
Yeah.
just hear things. Or yeah, some people see things or yeah, it's kind of all over the place. I get a lot of visuals though. So
Yeah.
that feels very like real to me.
Yeah. That makes sense as a an artist for sure.
Yeah.
Um, it does feel really similar to psychism as well, or receiving information from a figure that's no longer living, or um, it feels similar to that, but it's obviously like inside of your own individual experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of IFS.
Me
I'm a
too.
huge fan of Chelsea Owens's IFS.
Thanks. I'm just so glad you could experience it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was amazing. I will say like it is very the effect was very similar to subconscious work I've done,
Yeah.
where like the day after, maybe 2 days after, I was so low energy, which is kind of how my body feels after like purging's not the best word, but like when I there's a great energetic discovery and like maybe a release. I wasn't sure if there was a release involved, but yeah, it I'm feeling it reverberate in my life in a lot of different ways. It's only been one session so far.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, big fan.
Big fan. Is there
Um,
anything to
yeah.
say about astrology and your practice?
Mm,
And anything else you feel like you need to define or explain?
yeah, I maybe it's helpful in the first episode to talk about like how the practice of astrology began as an omen tracking um practice, like and like thousands and thousands of years ago.
Hmm.
Basically, when we started calling a group of people civilizations, and before that, astrology was used to tell if there was going to be a bad crop or if we were going to survive the winter. Like that kind of information was really important at that time, still is. But that's how astrology was used. And astrology and astronomy for a very long time were connected until it split off. And I'm not going to get into the dates and years because honestly, I can't remember the numbers very well. But the progression is interesting because it shifted from this like greater collective or like are we going to survive kind of basis of information into a more introspective or personal um, practice or tool. And it was kind of around when religions, like when Buddha and Jesus came around, religions shifted from more of like a greater collective experience discussion into like the what's the phrase? Heaven is within you. The
Mm.
kingdom of God is within you. Like that's what Jesus taught us. If we're going to boil everything down, is Jesus taught us to love one another like ourselves, emphasis on selves. And Buddha taught us that we have everything we need inside of ourselves. We must go inward. Around that time, like within in that 1,000 year basically bracket, astrology shifted to like we started seeing we have records of individuals' birth charts being marked down. Mostly like the royal people or people who like the moment they were born was very important. So like kings, popes, that kind of thing. Um, and that's really interesting to me because in general, we started seeing the more of the macrocosm and microcosm of like what we're experiencing inside of us tends to reflect externally, or what we're seeing in our community is reflecting in the sky. And then those patterns being tracked to like the second and like the millisecond sometimes of when a planet shifts into a sign. So
Wow.
many like undeniable mirror moments happen. Like this planet shifts into this zodiac sign and then all of a sudden there's a famine, or all of a sudden there's a like a brand new religion pops up. Something like that, or things like that. Then getting to the more detailed personal psychological self, which like right when we started developing, humans started developing like psychotherapy or therapeutics, is when astrology also shifted into that more like examining one's own behaviors or one's own reactions, like that kind of thing. So to me, it's it's like parallel lines. and how we're experiencing other parts of humanity. And I'm curious how astrology will adapt or shift the more like we rely on AI or
Mhm.
robots or
Yeah.
other types of technologies, and how astrology will become useful in a new way or a different way. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know if I'm like kind of going off on a big tangent right now, but that's a context for astrology that is interesting to me. Again, I'm not interested in convincing anyone to believe in astrology, but being able to track these patterns and see co-prevalences gives me a lot of like hope or
Hmm.
information. It gives me good information to know how I may approach something that is arising in my life. Is like one of the most vague ways to put like there's a planet about to do something with one of my natal planets, my like like the sun when I was born was in Libra. And if there's a planet going over that sun marking on my birth chart, then I may want to be more mindful of X, Y, and Z, like that kind of thing. And I
Hmm.
do that for clients as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think I should talk about something else with that? Or, I mean, astrology is hard to boil down. I think that's part of its allure for me. I
Yeah.
love, we talked about this. I love the yoga tradition and similar traditions because it takes literal lifetimes to become a master in any of them. So
Hmm.
in one lifetime, you can only experience and like practice a little facet of it. That's why astrology is absolutely
Hmm.
dazzling to me.
And you are a genius. You you won't admit it, but I've witnessed it. Like you're a genius with what you've studied so far, and I just know that you have so much information. And I also hear like, yeah, and there's just like books and books and books and
Yeah.
volumes of more to learn. But
Yeah.
you also know a lot.
I do. I wonder if I don't know if I necessarily believe in past lives, but I'm
Yeah.
interested in it. And I wonder if maybe there was an astrologer in a past life who's given me a little bit of like the base knowledge or the base energy to build
Mhm.
off of, because it's like it's strange to me that I've been so fascinated by this and dedicated almost my whole life.
Yeah.
And like in ways that didn't feel that intentional.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of like my spirit has guided me toward
Yeah.
these kind of traditional thinking. Like the like being obsessed with myths as like a very young child, I think was like, okay, here's your basic building block because the next is the birthday book, if you know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
The big like honker with everyone's
Right.
birthdays in it. That was a
Love
big
it.
one for me.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so true about the the forces that have guided us to where we are and like
Yeah.
looking having the readings with you where you've pointed out things about my birth chart now as, whatever age I am and showing me the places where I am doing the job that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But like I did not have an idea that I would be doing these things, like I said, back when I was like 20 or, even in my teens, I had no idea this is what I would be doing or where I would be.
Yeah.
But those guiding forces, and had I wouldn't have wanted to like know all that information when I was younger either, that
No.
make it fun. But yeah, all those the forces and spirit or whatever is bringing us to where we are, giving us those
Yeah.
little hints along the way, like, ooh, I like that and I like that, and then you kind of bring it all together, and
Yeah.
here you are. Yeah, and I also
Yeah.
loved. I think it was middle school we started reading about gods and goddesses and myths, and I also found it so fascinating. I would just like gobble that up. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, and like it was like a reading like a soap opera. It was like
Yes. I was just gonna say it's like gossip.
such drama, high drama, like romance, you
Yeah. Murder.
know, affairs. You're just like, wow, like, I can't
Yeah.
believe all this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Jesus could never.
I know. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I was thinking about narrative nodes earlier of like someone's life. Astrology, I like to call astrology a time honoring practice.
Hmm.
Like we can't know what's going to happen next. It's always like a change or a shift, a narrative movement. And that's like the best part of living, although it's really frustrating when you have like 10 years of the same problem.
Yeah.
Like, please give me a new problem is like that. I think that's another thing about humans is that we really do need change and checking in with what's about to happen or what just happened. Like
Mm-hmm.
it soothes us because we're built for movement. We're built for shifting. Where trees maybe not so much. You know, like they literally, well, I don't know, maybe they can move, we just don't know. But they can't move from where they're planted.
Hmm.
So maybe they don't require as much narrative shifting as we do. Maybe their astrology is very, very slow.
They're just cool staying put. They're just
Yeah,
like, all I need.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, maybe it would be fun in future episodes or maybe the next episode to also give people what they want, which is to know more about our own astrologies, our own like birth chart information. Um, I
yeah.
know you already said that you're a Libra sun.
Oops.
So we'll leave it there. The rest of it will come later.
And you're a Leo rising, you said.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
uh-oh. Now everyone knows every detail. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
We'll
mean,
tell you
my
the
birth
rest
chart is what did she say?
we'll tell you the rest of it later.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us for Parts and Charts, the IFS and Astrology Podcast. If something sparked insight or resonated with you, we'd love to hear from you.
No, really, we're here to make friends. Reach out to us. Leave a comment, subscribe, and if you feel called, share this episode with someone you care about. Or if you want to work with us one-on-one and go deeper with this work, check the link in the show notes for how to find us.
Until next time, may all of you feel a part of the family.